All right, ladies and gents, we are live then. And I've got to start by asking, how on earth has it come to this? This is cheese in security nets. Yes, they've started putting cheese now in security cases because of the rise in theft. In fact, we're going to go over some crime stats today. And quick tip, it's exploded. We're also going to give you an update on Pavel Durov, the CEO of Telegram, talk about a little bit of Russia, Ukraine, and then we'll give you an announcement on Texas and California, a couple of announcements that have just come out here then. So a lot to go over. Let's get straight into it. Tesco is putting security tags on blocks of cheese in order to deter shoplifters. Now, I'll tell you the first thing that caught my attention as soon as I saw this, right? You got these massive blocks of cheese here that cost £5.95. And apparently, because there's so much theft, they thought they would target the highest price items. Now, maybe I think too logically about things, but if I were a thief going into the supermarket, am I going to grab that massive block of cheese and try and stuff it down my pants? Or am I going to grab a couple of these little ones straight in the pockets? I think I would do that. I mean, it's unbelievable what is now happening. It's not the only supermarket. A lot of supermarkets, they're putting tags on. You've seen it, all sorts of things. Every time I buy a steak in the supermarket, I have to get them to take the darn tags off these things. Sometimes you have to wait there and queue up to get all these tags taken off now. It's pretty wild, really. Shoplifting is at record levels now in Britain, with 50 offences recorded by police every single hour in England and Wales. This is up 30% in a year. How many do the police go out to? Do you remember that we did the statistics video on this? Almost zero. It's a very, very small amount because it's just classed as a misdemeanor now. We've had some people from the public. Janet Woodrow, 63, said she had become numb to the extent of shoplifting, adding, "I don't know what's worse, the crime of stealing or the crime of selling a block of cheese for nearly £6." I think Janet's got a good point there. We also had another branch that is putting security tags on rotisserie chicken. Yes, on chicken. Another is putting it now on sausages and bacon as some of the highest things being stolen now. But not to be outdone, another supermarket is now putting the security tags on the shopping baskets themselves because people have been stealing the baskets and scrapping them for their metal. Okay, so the British Retail Consortium said the total cost of crime now stood at 3.3 billion per year. This is double what it was last year, and they're expecting it to double again potentially, they've said potentially, next year. When asked why the rise in shoplifting, they declined to give a reason. I've got lots of ideas on that, why we're getting all these rises in shoplifting, and I think it's a multitude of reasons, but of course it is what it is. Right, let me tell you, in fact, before I tell you about the Telegram CEO, what has just happened with him, I just couldn't even believe this. Hold on, let me go to, here we go. I want to tell you, this has just come out in the UK as well, and we'll get into some others here. This is Citizens Advice in the UK. They've now said 1 in 4 people could be forced to turn off their heating and hot water when the energy bill increases come in this autumn. So autumn is fall for the American viewers. Bill payers reported they have to take drastic action coming up shortly. This £150 or 9.2% increase to the energy price cap. This comes as Citizens Advice is helping record numbers of people with energy debt, even in summer. So the new research has just come out from Citizens Advice, which is pretty reliable. that says, and I say reliable because sometimes we have these very heavily either left or right biased surveys and things that come out. Citizens Advice, I'd say, is mainly unbiased. So I think we can accurately go by what their stats are saying here. They say that nearly 1 in 4 people, so 25%, or the equivalent of 16.5 million people, are so worried about increases in energy costs that they say they'll be forced to turn off their heating and hot water this winter. This increased to 31%, or this increases to 31% of households with children and 39% of bill payers on a low income. Goodness, 39% now. Let me just pass one other comment on this. We're seeing all these budget announcements by the UK government where they're trying to raise all these new billions. They're raiding pensions, they're raiding pensioners, they're raiding everything that they can think of. They're going to put up capital gains tax, or all these other taxes that shouldn't even exist in the first place. They're going to be doing all these raids. And at the same time, it was baffling to me. They said, we've got to find all this money because there's a black hole, because we need to support the brutal invasion of Russia versus, they keep saying the Russia-Ukraine thing. And they need to send, what is it, 3 billion, is it, next year they need to find to send? And yet, again, we keep coming back to this. Is anyone ever going to ask the people what they think about this? I guess not. No one's going to ask. But yet, the people in the UK are getting absolutely impoverished. We're seeing this massive class change in now. So before we had the middle class as a very large category, and they are just shrinking. You're seeing even the wealthy in the UK getting richer, but also fleeing to other places because of the tax rates there. The UK government is also killing off a lot of the tech projects. Have just announced 2 more that they've killed off now, these technology projects that would have brought in a huge amount of investment and talent as well. Really, talented workers. It doesn't make any sense that they've got open borders for anyone to come in, but now they've made it harder for talented people to come in, and they're cutting off all these projects that would have brought even more talent into the country. It's as if it's sort of intentional at this point, a lot of this stuff. It's somewhat mind-blowing. So Citizens Advice is warning that without urgent intervention from the government, households will continue to face impossible choices and drastic cutbacks just to be able to afford to heat their homes. 48% said they would have to turn down or turn off their heating or hot water. That's not a typo, by the way. 48%. And yet people are becoming so poor now. It's unbelievable. And the government just wants to tax more people. 34% said they would have difficulty affording food or other essentials such as their mortgage, rent, or childcare, and just 7% said they would be forced to skip meals. This is where we are now. And they keep saying, well, pensioners can get this winter fuel payment. Well, have you seen? It's 243 questions for them to claim this. It's a challenging 22-page form. So they've made, it's obvious, it's deliberate. Remember, they employ psychologists and all these other people to make this really difficult. That's what they're doing. And they've got all these silly questions in there. Does your partner agree to your application? All this stuff, it doesn't really make any sense. So I thought what I would do was let's say I'm a pensioner and I use Google. So I put in their DWP winter fuel payment claim form, okay? So up comes this. So you click this, right? You ready? And then it says, well, it's got all these links. So if you're older, you're not going to understand a lot of this anyway for some people, a lot of the much older people. So here we go. Let me say, okay, here it is. Here's the claim form. Huh? Where's the claim form? Now I've got to click here. And now I've got to read pages and pages of all of this to even find out how I can do it. And it doesn't even tell you how to claim anyway before you get to this massive form to fill in. They're doing it deliberately. It really annoys me. But let me move on to the next thing. So we talked about this the other day. CNN is having a field day with this. Russian Pavel Durov transferred now from police custody. So they've held him for the absolute maximum amount of time. And they've now transferred him from the police custody. And I read that and went, thank goodness he's been released. No, he's been transferred to court, ready for indictment and charges. You can't make this stuff up. I mean, how on earth has it got to this point? Even the UAE is putting diplomatic pressure on France, and they're saying he is a citizen with a passport. He lives in Dubai. His company's in Dubai. He employs people in Dubai, etc. And they said it's not just the UAE, but there's Russia as well. They said that they're not getting anything from France. It's just a complete nothing. But CNN's having a great time. Some of the things they've written about him made me raise my eyebrows in disbelief. Let's see what they're calling him here. Oh yeah, he was transferred to court for questioning ahead of an indictment, prosecutors are told. It says that Pavel Durov, who has fathered more than 100 children. No, he hasn't. They keep saying this line, and they keep saying the Russian man who is... He hasn't fathered more than 100 children. If you read into it, he was a sperm donor. That's basically what happened. My goodness. The Russian-born billionaire exited the anti-fraud house where he's been questioned on charges including child pornography. Yeah, we can't even say this sort of stuff. And drug trafficking, all this stuff. It's obvious what they're doing, ladies and gents. They are just tightening the net more and more and more because he won't comply with their requests or their demands. They are going after him. They're slandering him. They're tying him to the most heinous crimes imaginable. I'm sure we can all agree. And they're just trying to put all this pressure on him to release all of our, because I use Telegram, all of our personal data and messages. They want access to everything. He's saying, no, I'm not giving you access. It's private. Okay, so he was placed in custody for 96 hours. This is the absolute maximum under French law before being charged. So they've said that it's now at the point where he's going to court, where he will face possible charges unless, they keep saying, unless he gives access. It's just blackmail. That's what's happening. They're also saying that the conversations on the app are encrypted, mean that law enforcement agencies are not able to access the information, which is unacceptable. Unacceptable to who? The law enforcement agencies. Yeah, and then it goes on again to say how he fathered 100 children. The Russian man who fathered 100 children, who is a billionaire and has a lavish lifestyle. Give me a break. Okay, next one then. This I found very interesting. So this is Ukraine's drones have just done a very successful campaign to blow up Russian oil depots. And what I found interesting about this, we had a statement. Here we go. I think I got the statement here. So this is a absolutely huge oil depot. It's not an oil field that's gone up in flames. I mean, the black plumes from this thing are huge. So we had this statement. I should have wrote the guy's name down. But he's one of these guys that is always on the TV and media talking about climate and how, he's talking about how we need to reduce our carbon footprint and we need to do all this sort of stuff. He's one of those sort of guys. And then he's got his own private jet and things like that, which of course his carbon footprint doesn't count because he's an educator. So, that's how he offsets his, by educating us, blah, blah, blah. Now, I was just watching that. I thought it was unbelievable. And I was just writing all this stuff down and just reading some of his statements. So he applauds the drone strike on Russian oil fields. What was I going to say with this? He's applauding the drone strikes where all this fossil fuel's gone up and saying it's a win because of all this fossil fuels burning. Well, there's two things here I think people are missing about this. Number one, the oil that's gone up, it's not as if when people use energy, right? They're going to go, oh, well, that oil's gone up in flames. Never mind, I just won't use any energy for the next month. No, of course, they're just going to pump more oil. They're just going to get more energy out. So he's celebrating the destruction of that. And he's also celebrating, which I don't think he realizes, do you know how much all of that black smoke going up into the air, if he's really concerned about carbon and emissions and everything else, he's celebrating that with all the it doesn't make, see, these people, they catch themselves out to us in the general public that watch it, and we know that they're talking absolute nonsense, just the most ridiculous things ever. Now, there's a couple of other things that have just been announced. Ukraine is, UK backs Ukraine, so some of you in the UK are not going to be happy with this, to strike Russia with Storm Shadow missiles. Uh-oh, big problems on the way. Zelensky is also, in fact, let's talk about this article a little bit. Let's have a look at this. So they've said that they are backing this now to be used against Russia, but they'll not publicly call for the move amid concern it would provoke a row with the US. So it can strike targets 190 miles away, so deep within Russia. A White House source told The Telegraph the Biden admin has concerns that their use, even without US approval, could escalate matters and lead to American troops being drawn into the conflict. And I think they're right, and I'm surprised we're getting this out of the Biden admin, some sort of restraint there. So this is the Storm Shadow. Do you know how much these things cost per unit, by the way? No wonder the UK is going broke. $960,000 US. I don't know what that is in pounds right now. I think it's about 1.32 exchange rate. That is a huge amount of money, and yet they won't give pensioners any money. Just one of these things. Imagine how many pensioners heating that would cover for the year. Earlier this year, Grant Shapps, the defense secretary, is understood to have pushed for Kyiv to strike Russian warships in Crimea, while America had more caution, I think they mean to say there. Sources said at the time British decisions to become the first Western nation to donate main battle tanks and the country's push to deliver F-16 had caused angst in Washington, with officials believing the UK was trying to bounce them into similar decisions. So we're sort of seeing this changing dynamic now then. Very, very heavily. So Zelensky has just praised the first testing of a ballistic missile that they have apparently made. Okay, Governor Abbott over in Texas then has just announced 1 million ineligible voters have been removed from the voting roll. This is deceased people, voters on the suspension list, voters who have a felony conviction, non-citizens. The Biden admin, of course, is not happy about this at all. Of course they're not. No, removing all these people off the off the list. Let's see how they vote this time in Texas. And California votes to approve $150,000 in taxpayer-funded home loans for illegal aliens. It passed with 23 votes to 11. People are not happy about this at all. It provides a 20% down payment. The only caveat, you must be a first-time home buyer and a first-generation home buyer. Wow. What a wild one today. That's your roundup. I'll see you for the walk and talk tomorrow. Let's pray for good weather. Otherwise, I'm going to get drenched again. Thanks for being online. Take care. God bless you all, and I'll see you tomorrow.